I've been karting for about 18 months now, and kind of thought it'd be a fun idea to venture to a track I hadn't been before, and enter into a 50-lap race, and and see if I could win it. Now, Teamsport Acton is actually the closest track to my house, but I've never been there. And I've actually kind of been sort of warned off Acton, or had been warned off Acton, because it's quite a short track. It's a very short track. I think the average lap's kind of around 30 seconds, and it's electric karts, which I don't think, and a lot of people don't think, are as fun to drive as petrol karts. And also, Acton's it's quite a basic format. It's a sort of like a giant figure of eight. And it's not the fastest track either, so I always had kind of reservations of going there. But then, because it was so close, I thought, well, it would be fun to venture there and try and win a race there on a car I'd never driven before in karts I'm not massively keen on. I also had the kind of genius idea that as it was only 5.6 miles from my house, I thought I can get up really early on the Sunday morning. Race doesn't start till 9, so I can get up at like 7:30, and I can actually jog to the track. I'm fairly fit at the moment. I do quite a bit of running anyway, and I thought that'd be a really way to kind of keep fit and be a fun start to the day. So you can see that's the view just after I'd woken up in the morning. I hadn't taken into account that we got back very late on the Saturday, so I was very, very tired on the Sunday morning. Really could have done without that much of an early start. And of course, the sat-nav that I was using was Google Maps, and it took me down this route here, which of course was by the river. It told me I could run down there. There were rats there. You definitely could not run down there. So it took me quite a few funny routes like that. There were some pretty views there, as you can see now. That's the river. I think I was near Richmond or somewhere at that point. That's one of the few times the Google Maps sat-nav thing had actually not had me running in completely the wrong direction. Yeah, I hadn't actually realised some of the views near my house were actually quite that pretty, so it was quite nice doing that, and especially that early in the morning. I think the next picture coming up is another one of the routes the little sat-nav thing took me down. That was, I think, probably about U-turn number 50 I had to make after that. So I did eventually make it to Acton in one piece, and never actually had the kind of format of the race explained to me. So we weren't gridded up as you kind of normally are in 50-lap races. We just it was a rolling start, lights went green, and the race started. So here is the start. Lights went green. Started off in third, managed to take second pretty much straight away, and then dived up the inside for the first corner up the little uphill bit to take the lead up the inside. First time, I think third time actually I've ever driven electric karts, but I haven't driven them for about a year. They do handle very differently to petrol karts, and obviously the track was quite slippery, hadn't been driven on, so you can see me kind of struggling a little bit. The floor's quite shiny, it's quite slippery, and also electric karts handle differently to petrol karts. I drive petrol karts all the time, but I'd say it's probably only about the second or third time I've driven electric karts, and they do handle very differently. So it took me a little bit of getting used to. And you can see for this kind of opening bit, I wasn't really able to pull away because I was skidding a lot, not really getting my braking points right and stuff, and not driving terribly well as I was still getting used to the car and waiting for my tyres to warm up. But once I kept looking behind me and seeing that I wasn't really pulling away, and I thought, it's going to be a bit of a tough race. But once the cart got a little bit warmer, I started getting more used to the handling of the electric karts. My driving got a bit better, and I started to pull away pretty fast after that, really. There were only 6 of us that had turned up for the race. I was a bit disappointed by that. I was kind of hoping there'd be a few more, but I don't know if it was because of the fuel situation or whatever, but there was only 6 of us there. But it was quite a good standard of people. People had been there before, and then there was one chap afterwards who karts at the same track in Surrey that I do. So this is me lapping 6th place. He kind of spun there and came forward a little bit, tried to correct himself, hit me a little bit, but it was fine. I got through. So that was lap 6th place. It all kind of felt very comfortable at the moment. The kart felt very good. I think that's 5th place ahead of me now that I was coming up to lap. yeah, and he just ran a little bit wide, so I was able to do that quite easily up the inside. And shortly after that, I caught up with fourth place. And again, this was a fairly easy overtake. It just went a bit too wide. A lot of them seemed to be taking quite wide lines, and because it was quite a round circuit, a kind of sort of figure of eight circuit. I quickly kind of sort of worked out that I think it was better just to take tighter lines. So that's how I was able to do a lot of the overtakes, just keeping a nice tight line, braking quite early, and then just going up and making moves up the inside. The interesting thing about this format is because they are electric karts, they actually can't do the full 50 laps. So they have to change karts after 25 laps. And that would have quite a big bearing on this race. In a way, it was kind of lucky for me because, in the first heat, which is the heat obviously you're watching now, because they basically, after 25 laps, they pulled us into the pits. They did wave the checker flag, pulled us into the pits, and got us to change karts. But luckily, the aggregate from the first heat carried over, and it was quite important that I was lapping people, because I managed to lap all four people, and then I got up right behind second place, so I was an entire lap ahead of second place once the first 25 laps were finished, and that proved to be very important for reasons you'll see quite shortly. At this point, the tyres had really come in. That track was that little bit warmer, and I was really enjoying this stint. In a way, it kind of it seemed very comfortable at this point. You see, sometimes as I go through the corners, I have this curious habit of I do it there, raising my left hand. I don't know why I do that. It's always like a kind of psychological thing to try and sort of steady the cart or something as I go through the corners, or try and sort of slow it down somehow or something, but you see me do it quite a lot. But yeah, I'm not really sure why I do that. But it's quite a curious little habit. So this is me starting to catch up to third place. Not too sure what this guy's real name was. He put his name down just as returns in the when he signed in for the results. So that's how he appeared in the standings. But yeah, I'm not sure what his real name was. But I think he ended up second overall. But he was third at this point as I came up to lap him. He was taking reasonably good lines, but again, I just had the opportunity to go up the inside. I think one of the main things was I was getting better exits than people out of the corners. As I say, they were taking slightly too wide a line, so it was enabling me to carry more speed out of the corners, and it was making the overtakes fairly easy. So I think at this point I was coming up to double lap sixth place. So that's who's in front of me at the moment. There's that hand again. It's almost like I was trying to sort of use the force there to push him away, but probably sure I wasn't. Yellow flag here. So that means kind of slow down, no overtaking, which is what we did, but it very quickly went green, and then I double lapped fifth place as well. And that ahead of me now, a lap behind, is the chap who was in second place at that point, and I'm sure I'm going to butcher his name. It appeared in the results as Zadranus Priscillus. They put out the yellow flag now, I believe, because this is the end of the first stint. So we were called in. I had completed 25 laps at this point, so they called us into the pits to get us to change karts. There was no urgency at this point. They just kind of pulled us all in. We all stopped together. We all sort of had to change karts. And then we started the race randomly after a short period after that. Because no one had told me about the format, I wasn't actually sure if they had taken into account that I was a lap ahead at the end of the first 25 laps, at the end of the first half I had a lap's lead, and I wasn't sure if that had been taken into account, or if they just effectively started a kind of almost like a second race. It later turned out that they actually had taken that into account, so I had a lap's lead at this point. I actually didn't need to overtake Zodranis, but I didn't know this at the time, and I thought, just to be on the safe side, I should overtake him. And the problem was the start of the second stint. I very really quickly realised I had a problem, and that was that my kart in the second stint was really, really bad. The kart in the first stint had been very, very good. I did manage to go up the inside there. I was, again, just utilising the better exits of the corners, because this kart had really, really bad acceleration and bad handling as well. It kind of seemed to have both oversteer and understeer at the same time. And I kind of hoped that would go away. I figured it was just because it was a cold kart, and that would go away once the tyres got warm and the kart got a little bit warmer, but it didn't. And it had no straight line speed. I looked at the times afterwards. My best lap during the first stint was a 27 seconds flat, just a smidgen over, but basically 27 seconds. And my best lap out of all the laps in the second stint on a warmer track was a 28.2. The majority of my laps were all around the kind of 28.5 for the second stint, so I was about a second and a half slower per lap than I'd been in the first stint. And that is an enormous handicap over what is effectively a 30-second course. It's a huge, and I very quickly realised that I was not able to pull away, and this worried me because I wasn't sure if they had carried over my aggregate from the first race where I was a lap ahead of everyone, and it turned out they had, but I wasn't sure at this point, so I thought I really better. I couldn't pull away. I kept looking over my shoulder, and second and third place was still there, so I really thought I'd just better protect my lead and just start doing some really defensive driving, which is what I did. And while this makes for more interesting footage, I think it was very, very frustrating for the two guys behind me, Returns, inverted commas, and Zodranis, who got very, very frustrated. They kept trying to overtake me, but because although my kart had really bad straight line speed, I was holding them up a lot on the straights. They were kind of banging into me a lot at the end of the straights, but Zodranis gets past me there. But I did quickly get past. He left a little gap, so I went for it back up the inside and took him straight back again. Because like I said, I wasn't sure we were still fighting for the lead. We actually weren't. I was still a lap ahead, but I didn't know that at that time. So yeah, they were getting frustrated because they were bumping into me at the end of the straights. But then I was getting a better exit out of the corners. But then obviously because my slow kart, they were just getting right behind me again, and I'm very good at defensive driving, so I was just kind of hugging the inside line and deliberately making it very, very difficult for them to pass me. Yeah, you'll see one of them actually hits me there. That kind of became the theme of the second half of the race, and then sort of hitting me and getting frustrated. It did create. Zodranis actually came up to me after the race and kind of expressed his annoyance with me, but and saying, he said, I should have let him pass, but at the end of the day, it's a race. I hadn't come there, woken up at 7 o'clock in the morning, run 6 miles to the track to come second. I'd come there to win, and I'm entitled to defend my line and defend my position. It's defensive driving, and I'm fairly good at it, and so that's what I did. I was very determined to win because I'd set myself this little challenge of turning up a track I hadn't driven on, in karts I wasn't used to, and attempting to win. And of course I'd run 6 miles to get there, and it meant that after the race I was going to have to run 6 miles to get home again, and I was kind of tired and a little bit sleep deprived as it was anyway, so I was really determined to win because I did not want to have to run home 6 miles having turned up at the track and come second. That would have been really gutting, so I was really determined to win. And then, as I said a few times already, I didn't realise that I was still a lap ahead, so I was making it as difficult as possible. One of them kind of goes into the back of me again, and I was really sensing their frustration at this point. I could actually hear one of them kind of yelling at me, like, get out of the way, and kind of swearing a bit and stuff, but I was entitled to defend my line, so that's what I was doing. And it's not impossible to overtake me. One of them does manage it in a bit, as you'll see. But I was taking very good lines out of the corner, which was giving me better exit speed, although my kart didn't have very good straight line speed. You can see one of them trying to attempt me to overtake around the outside. It's very, very hard to do. But yeah, as I was getting better exits out of the corner, it was negating my bad straight line speed a little bit and making it very hard for them to overtake. But then finally, I've got a slight tap from behind, and returns got through, and Zordanis as well. Zordanis then left a little bit of a gap, which I went for. He then tried to close it, so he did hit a little bit, but I ended up ahead. So I wasn't sure if I was still winning at this point, because as I said a few times, I wasn't sure if they'd taken into account the first stint, but actually they had, so it didn't matter that I'd just been overtaken. I wasn't too sure if I'd still won, but I had. I was still a lap ahead. Because the checker flag came out, so I got the checker flag. And so it was mission accomplished. I had won, and I also got the fastest lap, courtesy of my first stint. So these are the results. I was first, just under a lap behind me was Returns, and then Zordanis in third. Robert Hunter was fourth. I'm probably going to butcher this as well. Pronunciation. Elijah Basilis was in fifth, and Mantugas Garuka was sixth. And there's me with my medal. I was very happy. The marshal very kindly announced me as Henry the Legend Walter. So it was very nice of him. I've no idea why he said that. We've never met before, but it was very kind. So I jogged the next 6 miles home a happy man. Although the Google Map did try and take me through someone's garden on the way back, but it is what it is.